of licenses all the time. So the movie evolves about Norma Jean Baker being the model, the pin-up, the abused one at some point, which is, you know, kind of documented throughout her life. Not only about she later on became Marilyn Monroe, of course, but she wasn't the only star that was abused. You know, it was a common practice to abuse people at Hollywood, not only at that time, but it continues to be the case. So, you know, being abused, essentially one of the scenes, she's forced to have sex with one of the studio owners, whether, you know, that studio owner in particular was the guy who abused her, I don't really know, but we cannot really discount that was a practice happening at that time, unfortunately, that women had to go through. She's constantly looking for her father. She clearly has daddy issues. As a matter of fact, old men that she was dealing with, old men that she was calling daddy, whether it was her agent or her husbands, Joy DiMaggio, and later on Arthur Miller. Also, we can see pretty clear from the beginning that she was deeply unstable. She was deeply unstable. She was a very fragile woman. At times, delusional. Oftentimes, she was underestimated, which is something that we know was the case of Marilyn all the time. You know, the dumb blonde jokes and, you know, that kind of stereotype. And she was a very intelligent woman, but because she came across very fragile, you know, sometimes she was misunderstood for it. Definitely, we also see the beginning of the sexual object that Marilyn Monroe ended up being, not only by choosing her own name, moving from Norma Jean Baker to Marilyn Monroe, also the way that she dressed and the blonde hair and the evolution to be a normal girl to the bombshell that she ended up being. And this brings me to Ana de Armas' performance. And I'm sorry, guys, but Ana de Armas is amazing. It's one of the best performances that I have seen a human being do, bar none. You know, some people were arguing because they didn't like how Marilyn Monroe was being portrayed in this movie. And to some extent, some people were like, well, why was Ana de Armas nominated to an Oscar? I don't know what the hell is wrong with you people. Ana de Armas is amazing. And, you know, at the beginning, she was also underestimated because as a Cuban, how is it possible that you can portray Marilyn Monroe? Okay, watch this movie and you will see what a wonderful actress Ana de Armas is. So that Oscar nomination was well deserved. And, you know, I would argue that she was a real contender for that statue. Anna's charisma matches Marilyn's, bar none. I mean, Marilyn Monroe, it is, as an actress, it must be incredibly difficult to portray. I mean, Marilyn Monroe, she's an icon, okay? She's an icon. And, you know, it's very big shoes to fill in. And particularly if you are a Cuban, oh my God, how are you going to do this? She was amazing because I believe Anna is amazing per se. The voice was on point. Wonderful work, Anna. The body, the vulnerability that Anna has been showing throughout, it's second to none. Amazing. For me, it was an outstanding performance. And you can tell the incredible hard work that Anna has to go through in order to portray this amazing icon. And she does it beautifully. So, you know, I'm in awe of Anna. And even her singing is on point. Although I believe Anna is not singing, she's imitating the singing, you know, in really on point. The walk, the hips, how Marilyn Monroe moved the hips and how Anna portrays that. It's fantastic. So for me, Anna is the best of the best. Fantastic work. Now, going back a little bit into what the movie portrays, and that some people find very, some people say if it is a little bit exploitative and, but it is fact that there is a high level of suffering. Ana de Armas portrays a Marilyn Monroe that's always unstable, always crying, always suffering. And that's sometimes hard to watch. It also portrays the Gemini nature of Marilyn Monroe, this constant thing between Norma Jean and Marilyn. Norma Jean versus Marilyn. At time, Norma Jean saying, I'm so tired of Marilyn. I don't want to play another scene with Marilyn. This duality, this constant battle between Norma Jean and Marilyn, it's similar to the constant battle between good and evil, who stays at the top. As I said at the beginning, a lot of iconic images were used in order to tell the story. So the recreations, in my opinion, from Andrew Dominik are really stunning. One of the good things about this movie is that it's not really a biopic, and we have already discussed that. There are lots of licenses happening. But this movie takes you to different genres at the same time. So the genre of fantasy, it's something that pops up in my head a lot because it moves from one genre to the other, this melodramatic, dramatic thing happening, but then the next scene looks like a fantasy scene. And then we even have horror in this movie. We have everything all at once. So this is the reason why I love this movie, because it takes you to so many different places simultaneously. And not many people are able to do that. It also explores Marilyn unsavory company in this portrayal of Charles Chaplin Jr. and Edward G. Robinson Jr. as well, and somehow of a threesome happening in there. This has been kind of debunked not to be true. Although there are some rumors that she perhaps may have had a brief affair with Charles Chaplin Jr. But, that has, there is no tangible proof of it. Now, this unsavory company leads to the downward spiral, you can say, of Marilyn Monroe, at least in this movie. There are some surreal sex scenes. I mean, they're beautifully shot. They're beautifully shot, and they're also beautifully encouraged to other things that do happen within one scene and the next. Like, she's having sex at one point, and then the next minute, she appears on top of the Niagara Falls. I mean, I did find that quite interesting, a quite interesting way to show sex, not super explicit or anything like that, but definitely a creative way, and I'm all up for it. But there are some other scenes that are explicit. I'm not going to, sugarcoat it. There are some surreal surgical scenes, and this ongoing guilt of a terminated motherhood that Marilyn Monroe's myth, it's all about how she either had miscarriages or she seemed to have had what the movie portrays forced termination of pregnancies. And this is something that we will talk in a minute. Throughout the movie, there is this constant ethereal music happening, and sometimes this music is haunting, And then I found out that the guy who did the music, it's nothing more and nothing less than Nick Cave. So fantastic work, Nick. Really good. Then there is this ongoing suffering happening, scenes of violent marriage, particularly with Joy DiMaggio.